Imagine waking up in a city where the air outside is thick enough to cook your internal organs within minutes. This is not a scene from a science fiction movie, but the projected future for several major global metropolitan areas. The wet bulb temperature threshold is the point where human cooling systems simply fail, and we are hitting it now. We are tracing the exact coordinates where the basic biological limits of human life will be tested and eventually broken. Your body cools itself through sweat, but that system only works when the surrounding air can actually absorb the moisture you release. When heat and humidity combine past a wet bulb reading of 35 degrees Celsius, that process stops working entirely, no matter how healthy you are. At that threshold, even a fit adult resting in the shade will suffer fatal organ failure within just a few hours. Scientists once considered wet bulb 35 to be a theoretical ceiling, something climate models projected decades into the distant future. But recorded weather stations in South Asia and the Persian Gulf have already logged readings that cross that boundary today. The data is no longer a warning, it is a verdict already written in the atmosphere above millions of people. The Persian Gulf is already one of the hottest inhabited places on the surface of this planet. By 2050, cities like Kuwait City and Abu Dhabi will regularly breach the wet bulb survival threshold during summer months. Karachi, home to 16 million people, faces heat events that could kill thousands within a matter of hours. The Indo-Gangetic Plain stretches across northern India and Pakistan, sheltering over 600 million lives in its reach. Scientists project that by mid-century, this region will see wet bulb temperatures that no human body can safely endure outdoors. Jacobabad in Pakistan has already crossed that threshold twice, and the crossings are becoming more frequent every single year. Sub-Saharan Africa faces a different but equally brutal equation, where heat compounds drought and strips away every margin of survival. The Sahel, stretching from Senegal to Sudan, will push daytime temperatures past 50 degrees Celsius with alarming regularity. Phoenix and Riyadh will see over 70 days per year above 45 degrees Celsius by 2050. These aren't distant projections built on uncertain models. They're the conservative end of what the data already shows. The geography of human survival is being redrawn, and the lines are moving fast. While heat stalks the inland world, the ocean is quietly swallowing the edges of human civilization from below. Sea levels have already risen roughly 20 centimeters since the industrial era began, and the pace is accelerating every decade. By 2050, scientists project an additional 30 to 60 centimeters of rise under moderate emissions scenarios, and that number climbs sharply if ice sheets destabilize. Jakarta, home to over 10 million people, is already sinking at one of the fastest rates ever recorded on Earth. Parts of the city descend nearly 25 centimeters per year, a combination of rising seas and collapsing groundwater beneath the surface. Bangladesh will lose roughly 17% of its total landmass to inundation, displacing an estimated 18 million people before mid-century arrives. Miami faces chronic flooding not from storms alone, but from the ocean pushing up through its own porous limestone foundation. Mumbai, Alexandria, Shanghai, these aren't distant warnings printed in a report nobody reads. These are cities where hundreds of millions of people wake up every single morning. The water doesn't wait for a policy meeting or a signed agreement to make its move. Heat doesn't just bake the land, it drains it, pulling fresh water from rivers, aquifers, and reservoirs into a burning sky. By 2050, the United Nations projects that over 5 billion people will face severe water shortages for at least 1 month every single year. The Himalayan glaciers, which feed nearly 2 billion people across Asia, are retreating at a rate that scientists describe as catastrophic and irreversible. India's Chennai already ran out of municipal water in 2019, and that collapse is now a preview, not an exception. The Colorado River, which sustains 40 million Americans across 7 states, has dropped to historically unprecedented lows in just the last decade. In the Middle East and North Africa, aquifers that took thousands of years to fill are being emptied within a single human generation. Salt water from rising seas is already pushing inland, poisoning the groundwater that coastal communities depend on to survive. Cape Town, Karachi, Mexico City, and Baghdad are all on the World Resources Institute's list of extreme water risk cities by 2040. When drinking water disappears, agriculture collapses first, and then the people who depend on that agriculture have no reason left to stay. The cruel mathematics of this crisis is that heat, drought, and sea level rise don't take turns. They arrive together, stripping a region of every option it has. Climate breakdown doesn't arrive in a straight line. It arrives in lurches, each one harder than the last. Scientists call these moments tipping points, thresholds where the system stops responding and starts accelerating on its own. The Greenland ice sheet is one of them, holding enough water to raise global seas by 7 full meters. Once enough of that ice melts, the melt itself generates heat, and the sheet begins consuming itself from within. Permafrost across Siberia and northern Canada holds twice the carbon currently sitting in our entire atmosphere today. When it thaws, it releases methane, a greenhouse gas 80 times more potent than carbon dioxide, over 20 years. That methane warms the planet faster, which thaws more permafrost, which releases more methane, and the cycle has no natural break. Heat, water loss, and sea level rise don't operate in separate lanes. They collide. A city losing its fresh water supply is also absorbing record heat, while its coastline quietly disappears beneath the tide. By 2050, scientists warn that crossing just 2 or 3 of these thresholds simultaneously could push entire regions past any realistic point of human recovery. In 2015, a single heatwave killed over 1,000 residents in less than 1 week of relentless, suffocating heat. Karachi sits on the Arabian Sea, home to 16 million people baking under a sun that now kills. Wet bulb temperatures there are already brushing the threshold where the human body simply cannot cool itself down. Jakarta is sinking into the Java Sea at a rate of up to 25 centimeters every single year beneath its people. The Indonesian government has already begun relocating its capital city, an admission that Jakarta's future is written in floodwater. Phoenix recorded 28 consecutive days above 110 degrees Fahrenheit in the summer of 2023, a number that stunned even veteran climatologists working the data. Its aquifer system, the underground water supply feeding millions, is being drawn down faster than any rainfall can ever hope to replenish it. And then there is Alexandria, Egypt, where 2 million people live on a coastline the Mediterranean is actively, measurably consuming every passing year. These aren't distant warnings delivered in abstract language. These are cities, breathing and populated, already crossing into the danger zone. Coastal cities from Miami to Mumbai will be fighting permanent tidal intrusion, not seasonal flooding, but water that simply does not leave. The Sahel, the Middle East, and the American Southwest will experience drought so severe that agriculture becomes structurally impossible across vast stretches of land. Freshwater aquifers that took 10,000 years to fill will be functionally empty within a single generation of continued extraction. The World Bank projects up to 216 million internal climate migrants by mid-century. People moving not by choice, but by the collapse of the places they called home. The year 2050 is not a distant abstraction. It's 30 years from the childhoods of people alive right now. Scientists have mapped what Earth looks like if current emissions trajectories hold, and the picture is unambiguous. This is not a warning about the future. These systems are already in motion, accelerating with each year of delay. The scientists aren't arguing about whether these changes are coming. They're arguing about how fast. Every credible climate model now points to the same brutal window. The decisions made between now and 2035 will determine which projections become history and which remain warnings. Carbon locked into the atmosphere today will still be trapping heat in 2080, long after the policies that allowed it are forgotten. The cities we've watched in this film aren't waiting for 2050. Some are already losing ground, losing water, losing people. Miami has spent over $1 billion on pumps and raised roads, and the ocean still finds its way in at high tide. Phoenix recorded its hottest summer on record in 2023, and the models say that summer will feel average by mid-century. The window for meaningful intervention isn't closing slowly, it's closing at a speed most governments haven't matched with action. What happens next won't be decided by the climate alone. It will be decided by what we choose to build, protect, and abandon. The geography of survival is being redrawn right now, and the pen is still in human hands.